Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of In Theaters with AlrightSprite, where we review movies, TV shows, and just anything related to that sort of sense of media in the world today. Or we just talk about, maybe like past movies we like, maybe future movies we want to go see, what we're excited for, or maybe current movies that we just saw and are now reviewing. And that is what I am doing today, except I'm doing that for a TV show. I will be reviewing The Boys alongside of a lot of other current superhero media in particular that I watched in the meantime while I was taking a break from posting content on YouTube. So to add on to that, yes, I am finally back to some degree. I am moved into my new apartment. A lot of the busyness in my life with my job and, with moving and all that finally is coming to an end, or coming close to opening up my schedule again, really. So now I got some time again to start making some content and get the ball rolling. I still have a few other busy things coming up for me, like I'm going on vacation soon and stuff like that. So I won't be posting as often as I would like. I would hope that I get back in the groove quick enough to where I can have things posting while I'm even on vacation. But that's really being hopeful, So for now, I'm really just sticking to some small time stuff, and I'm trying to get back in the groove of recording other content like game walkthroughs and all that. But for now, I figured now that I got into my new apartment, I actually have my own office where I'm recording now. So if it sounds different or sounds echoey, it means I still got to set some couple things up. I bought a bunch of new things to help with making content, like a new desk, some other like media centers, like just and like wires, all that to help make my setup work better for me and making content. So maybe one day I'll do a showcase video of how my setup is and stuff like that. But that's more on the back burner of ideas. I actually want to get some soundproof like foam to help the sound quality in this room a bit better if I can. But for now, it's just going to take some extra editing on my part, which, God, more work for me, right? But that's part of the fun, isn't it? To work more, right? I don't know. But I got a couple other things to kind of piece together. So for now, I just thought I'd do another episode of In Theaters with AlrightSprite, so that way I can kind of get something out for you guys, kind of get the ball rolling again and stuff like that. And we're getting ever more subscribers each and every day, and I thank you so much for the support, even though I did go on like a 2 to 3 month hiatus and probably won't get back to uploading as much as I'd want to super soon. But like I said, I want to get back in the groove of things, and this is what I thought would be a great start back into there. So once again, thank you for the support, and let's just hop right into it. So today's episode, I wanted to talk about, most importantly, season 3 of The Boys, and just really The Boys in general, and a lot of other TV shows and movies I've been watching in the meantime while I've been away. I had some time to sit down and actually get caught up on the Marvel universe and a lot of the shows people have been telling me to watch, I've been seeing online. And this was one of them. The Boys was in my TikTok feed, everything in my feed, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, everything for so long. And I'm like, all right, this can't just be the algorithm that's just reading my mind at this point. Like, this has to be some decent stuff going on. And to give a very quick, brief review of it, if you just want to hear my quick thought, it's worth every second watching. This show is amazing. It is the best show I have seen since probably Breaking Bad. Now, I don't know if that was just hype talking. I've only watched it completely once. I kind of want to go back and watch it again to see if I can see things I missed and if I really truly do like it. But after watching it and having a week or two since finishing it, this is about a week after me finishing the actual show too, sitting here and thinking about it, I think it is the best show I've watched since Breaking Bad. Now, I watched a lot of shows since then. I really liked Walking Dead and a bunch of really, really, really good shows. But when it came to The Boys, like, I could not step away. It was hard for me to step away. Like, I would stay up like an extra 2 hours a night when I wanted to go to bed just to finish a season. It just, I didn't want to step away from it at all. So it's just an exciting ride from start to finish. Every second feels important, or you want to know what happens. The characters are all entertaining, relatable. Even the terribly bad ones are relatable to some degree, but it doesn't mean that you like them as people. You still see them as the villain. but they're relatable. Like you want to see how it turns out for them. You care about what happens to almost every single character. There's very few characters that like either I can't stand or I just think are not written well. And honestly, the only characters I don't like is because on a personality sense, like I just don't like those kind of people, which that's kind of the point of in the first place. Like Homelander. We've all met a guy like Homelander in our life. Like not to that degree, because he is like extreme, like to some points. But we all have met people who think they're better than everyone else. Like that's just a reality of life. But like he has many things that like he's just anytime he's on screen, you can't take your eyes off because he's such an unpredictable, chaotic character where you just like you want to know what happens next, you know? Or with characters like Butcher, he is an asshole through and through, but he's so funny and entertaining. Even though he says some of the meanest stuff, like you want to see what he's going to say next. It's kind of like Negan, like from The Walking Dead. Like you hate his guts for how mean he is, but you want to see what he says next. You know, but at least with Billy Butcher, he's like the good guy here. So like you feel less of that, like I hate his guts. Like you more look at, am I saying his name right? It's not Billy Butcher, is it? What is wrong with me? Hold on, I can't believe I'm about to look this up. Sorry, guys, I'm looking this up because I don't want to be saying the name wrong. Yeah, it's Billy Butcher. I don't know. It sounds almost too like comic book name-ish to sound real. I had to think about it for a second, but no, every single character is amazing. So if you want a brief review and deciding whether you just want to go back and see it, just go back and see it. Just go on Amazon, get it, watch it for the boys. Even if it just you buy a 1 month subscription, it is worth the money. It is that entertaining. Or if you want to wait till the next season comes out so you can binge it all and then see the next season so you don't have to wait, that's perfectly sensible too. It is that good, and I recommend it highly. Yeah, so basically, to give my non-spoiler review, I guess is where we're at right now, because I will be going to the spoilers. We are in season 3, and I know I didn't get to do a review for seasons 1 and 2. I wasn't watching the show then. I want to talk about the whole show, and more particular why I like season 3 so much, especially compared to a lot of the other superhero shows right now. I would give this show a 9 out of 10. I want to give it a 10 out of 10. But there are a couple things that happen in the show where make me now want to give it a 9 out of 10. And I still feel like it suffers some very minor things, you know, where like it doesn't make it perfect. But like if you get a 9 out of 10 from me, that means that you are like a must watch, you know, a must watch, great television from start to finish, and is only shy of a 10 out of 10 for a few reasons that really aren't holding you back. Like, I wouldn't say those are the reasons that you shouldn't watch a show. I'd be like, yeah, like this is in it, but if you can probably get over it, you know? So go and watch the show. It's amazing. I love it. Some of the best television I've seen since Breaking Bad, in my personal opinion. Now, before I get into spoilers, really, for this show, and kind of talk about a lot of the moments I loved, a lot of the moments that surprised me, and a lot of the moments that I hated too, you know, like and how they made me feel and what I really think. Because like the non-spoiler section for this review is really meant for the people to come, like, go and watch the show, come back and see how they agree with me or not. Which I know I'm asking you to watch like what is it? Let's see, each season's about 8 episodes, about 24 hours, and then come back to my video. But hey, like if you don't want to watch it, you want to hear the spoilers and then go watch it, fine by me. But I wanted to talk about some of the like other shows coming out that I watched too, give kind of brief reviews on those. I wanted to focus most of this podcast on The Boys because of how much I love The Boys so much right now. So, but like I feel like it's warranted to kind of talk about these other shows because I've been watching those, and kind of how I watched those and then watched this kind of helped formulate my opinion for a couple of reasons. And what I mean by that is I went ahead and I watched Moon Knight, I watched Eternals, Miss Marvel, a lot of the not comic book, but like I guess technically comic book, like superhero movies. Multiverse of Madness is when I started to get back into Marvel a bit because I love Sam Raimi, which I actually personally really like that. That was like a 7 out of 10 for me because I personally liked a lot of the Sam Raimi film stuff he did. But I went ahead and watched that, and then watching The Boys, like you really get a really big difference. And sorry guys, I got a text from work. I was checking that out really quick. But where was I? Oh yeah, but like I just watching all these like Marvel shows. Like I didn't hate them. Like I'm not in this group of people that like just hate everything that Marvel's doing or Disney's doing right now. I try to be fair with it to some degree because I know what it feels like that you really like something and it gets unwarranted hate. I try to my criticisms come from a place of like, this is how I genuinely feel about it. And this is why, not just plain hate, because like there are some shows where like I cannot stand and people think I just hate completely. So I try to justify everything and try to give a benefit of the doubt, at least at the start, before I really try to say I do not like something. And I feel like that's kind of like Marvel's falling under the umbrella of it's faltering hard on a lot of different things, and it's creating really, really burnt people right now. Like, and by burnt people, I mean like they almost can't forgive how bad it's getting in some areas where like they just can't see the good in anything. And it comes from a place of like, you really messed up here, so how can I trust you anymore? Like it's kind of like the Star Wars effect. They really messed up big on a lot of things in the sequels where like people can't even see some of the good aspect of the sequels. Like for example, and I always use The Last Jedi as an example, I really did not like The Last Jedi. I understand why a lot of people liked it. I also understand why a lot of people hated it. There are many things I do not like, and I even hate to some point in that movie. But after watching it 3 times with a different lens and trying to like take away like the huge fandom part of me, I was like, all right, is there anything about this movie that I do like? And I eventually came to the conclusion, I was like, yes, I'm being unfair to this movie in the aspect of cinematography. The Last Jedi is probably the best Star Wars movie cinematography-wise in terms of shot composition and all that. And I feel like a lot of people don't talk about that. It's kind of the same effect with Marvel. A lot of people just cannot see the good in anything that they're seeing new to the point where they can't actually point out some good stuff. Like I guess like Miss Marvel. Like there's like the visual effects in that show are some top tier stuff. It's really good. I feel like it's kind of copying a little bit off of the Mitchells versus the Machines a bit, which is, take that as you will. Like I felt like it was like it felt too similar, but it was kind of like the same aesthetic they were going for anyway. So I separated that, even was like, well, the visuals are very entertaining, eye-catching, and that feels kind of new for like a like Marvel show now. So I gave it props for that. I feel like nobody that didn't like Miss Marvel really pointed that out as much. So that's what I really mean about trying to be as fair as possible with these shows. Like try to at least find one thing that you think is good, and if there's not a single thing, you gotta at least put up a valid reason for it. Like if they were to tell me like, oh, the Miss Marvel visuals sucked too, because like everything in that show just sucked. It's so like mid. It's like, okay, you aren't actually giving me reasons. You gave me a good reason for one thing, and then you just say everything is mid for everything else just because of that one thing. It's like, no, that's not entirely fair. So I guess I'm kind of summing up my opinion about Miss Marvel. I'll get to Miss Marvel at the end because that's the most recent Marvel thing other than Thor Love and Thunder, which I haven't seen yet. I wanted to go see it, but I couldn't find time, so this will not be included. The most I've heard about that is that there's too many jokes in it, and I feel like that's a fair criticism. But also, if you're entertained, you can at least say that too. And I'm expecting when I go see it to be entertained. I'll start with Multiverse of Madness. I really liked Multiverse of Madness because I'm a big Sam Raimi fan. I love the Spider-Man movies. I love Evil Dead. And I got to see a lot of that there. The one takeaway I got from it was I really enjoyed everything that like he did try to do. I enjoyed the cinematography of it. That felt fresh, but it also felt out of place. So I understand why some people felt like they couldn't really get into it because it just felt like it was all over the place. But I also see, like, since I'm a Sam Raimi fan, I really liked how the direction he was going with a couple things and how it felt like a horror movie at times. And that was what was really good from that movie. I think the one takeaway I got from it is this shows that Marvel needs to put more trust in the directors and give them a chance to be a bit more creative with it. Still have Kevin Feige there to make sure we're all on the same track. Like, that's the whole purpose of that. And that's what's so great about Marvel in the first place. But we can't forget that a lot of the entertainment factor is not always seeing the same thing all the time. You can repeat ideas and repeat things at different times and for valid reasons as long as they fit. But there's times where you need to like give some creative freedom to some new, fresh ideas. And I think Sam Raimi really showed how that's really beneficial. There is a lot of logic things kind of messed up in there, but I genuinely liked a lot of things. The CGI of the eye was a bit odd. I think a valid criticism that is said, and if you disagree with this, I feel like you're just kind of not really like, you can't see any criticism as criticism of anything. The CGI with this and even the trailers for She-Hulk look bad. All right. And I strongly believe this because I look at the CGI for like Avatar and like other, like even Toy Story, like, okay, I should use examples of actually Disney movies, but like, I'm trying to think of the Disney movie I just saw on like a post where it was a good example. I honestly can't think of it now, but the point I'm making is that this is not really the fault of like this is, sorry guys, I live next to a dog. Like, in my apartment, I live next to a dog that likes to bark at times. So if you hear them, that's who it is. But really, I can't control that because it's not my dog. But anyway, back to my original point. They need to give more time to the visual effect artists. They need to, because they give them the time they need and they'll make it look great. And then you won't have these criticisms. And if people don't want to wait long for it, then that's on them. But I feel like the general consensus is that, like, it seems like we're getting quantity over quality. So they just want to give out more rather than give out good with the visual effects. And I feel like if you're going to half-ass your story, which some of these stories seem to half-ass a lot of the time, you know, you got to be good in the visual effects department at least, because that at least tells me that you're focusing on one avenue rather than the other. But if your visual effects kind of falter, you know, because you're not giving the special effects artists the time they need, and then you're also giving the writers not enough time to come up with logical ways to write the story and have genuine dialogue, then that just tells me that you just care about getting my money instead of actually making good stories, which you are in the market of making good stories first. All right. Like, that's how you make your money. Like, it isn't just like, oh, we have a brand, so we make money, you know, like, and I feel like that's what a lot of these companies, especially Disney, tend to get in the thought process now. It's like, as long as we just put the money to make the bare minimum, like, we'll get it. It's like, yes, you will, but that doesn't make it morally right, you know, either. So it's like, come on, Disney, like, give your artists time. All right. Give your artists time, and we won't complain about that. You know, we'll applaud you for it, and you'll deserve it. But She-Hulk is not good, and I know they get the budget of a show, all right? So what I'm telling you is if your show is a part of a giant cinematic universe that has some of the highest budgets, along with the movies, you can't skim on the shows either, because they are going to be seen at the same level as these movies, which isn't always entirely fair, but at the same time, like, you're going to have that standard. People are going to all watch this together because it's all part of one universe. Like, you dug the whole Disney. You have to set it right then. You have to be consistent with it. You can't half-ass one because it just happens to be in this category. Like, no, you can't do that. You got to be consistent. And that's what matters to one of the most things that matters to me most as a viewer when it comes to series of any kind. Like Star Wars is always a great example. I always use Star Wars. Like, a lot of people complain about the new lightsaber fights because they wanted to be on the same kind of consistency of like the prequel fights because it got up to that good. So they want it to be the same. And you can use all the justification you want, saying like, oh, well, they don't know the styles, you're using this. It's like, well, you set that standard. Now, either you cement it well, the logical reason why it's not the same, or it's not going to work. And that's kind of the same thing with this. Like, you can't, like, the reason of, oh, it's a show with a show budget. It's like, okay, well, you're Disney and you threw millions of dollars at your one of your most profiting like aspects. I expect you to do that then as well. I'm not going to give you a pass just because it's a show. I'm not going to, especially since you make so much money from this. Like, Disney doesn't really get a pass for that, and that's completely fair. But, like, not everything is completely but, too. Like, I think the CGI for Moon Knight was pretty decent. I thought it was pretty decent. Like, that felt like the good in between. Like, they gave him enough time to make it look good enough, but like it looks still a little bit on the budget of a show. Like that, like I feel like that's a good example of like, okay, you don't have to spend that much money, but like that's still pretty decent work for the most part, you know? Um Trying to think, where was I? Yeah, so that kind of moves me on to Moon Knight. I watched Moon Knight next. No, I watched Hawkeye next, and I really liked Kate Bishop. I thought out of all the new like Avengers and Marvel superheroes that they're really introducing, I really liked Kate Bishop. To me, she was very funny. I think her chemistry, Yelena, is top tier. I can't wait to see more of them together. And I felt like for a very toned down kind of, um, like After Effects from Endgame, Hawkeye getting the show and it being kind of like drawn out how he's slowly dealing with it and stuff, with that little snippets with how he has like kind of PTSD and like all that different stuff. It was done really well. I feel like that show got a little bit of crap. I felt like some of the things was kind of weird. Um like, I wish we got more time with Kingpin. I really do. And I hope he's not, like, spoiler alert. Well, the show's been out forever. If you haven't watched it by now, then, hey, spoiler alert, okay? Like, if you haven't watched it by now, then I say go watch it and don't listen to me any further. But I hope he isn't dead. I want to see more from him because I don't know the actor's name, but he just kills it as Kingpin. He just kills it. Like, he's so good in that role, and I just want to see him do more. I thought Hawkeye was pretty good. I want to see another season of Hawkeye. I do. I want to see more because I think there's a lot to see with him and Kate Bishop's relationship as like the mentor-mentee. I think they really meshed well together. And maybe that's me giving the benefit of the doubt of the show because Hawkeye is one of my personal favorite Avengers. I always like the whole aspect that he's kind of he just has a bow and arrow and he's just really good with it. Now, the stuff he does is absolutely superhuman, but I mean, it is a show too. But still, like, people don't give him the credit I think he deserves. So it's just really cool to see that show. So I really like that show a lot. I'd probably give that like maybe a 7 out of 10. I genuinely liked Kate and her chemistry, a lot of the characters. I'm very excited to see her in the new Avengers. So I think it did well for that. But there were a couple of like side things I thought were a bit weird. I think mostly with the Nina stuff. I felt like that was kind of rushed at the end instead of like they gave a lot of time into it, but it still felt just kind of rushed. Like as soon as I saw her on screen, I was like, they're gonna do some sort of like character arc where we're supposed to like her. Like it felt really pushed, like right from the moment I saw her. I don't know what it was. And as soon as I saw her, I was like, okay, so she's going to get revenge eventually. You know, like she's going to try to kill Hawkeye once and then hear that it actually wasn't him. And that, like, I kind of called it from the start. So it's probably because her story was so predictable. But yeah, I'd give that probably a 7 out of 10. Multiverse of Madness. I want to give it an 8 out of 10, but it's probably more realistically from a 6 to a 7 because the visual effects are good. But like, if you're not really into that, then it's probably slightly above average for that reason. Oh, and I also thought Mr. Fantastic being in the movie and the Illuminati was a great addition. I hope they use John Krasinski again for Mr. Fantastic. I really, really, really want to see that. So please, Marvel, bring him back for the role. I think he would be great. And to give some credit to his name, you know, like he is no joke. So like, I want to see a Fantastic Four film, which I think we got the announcement that it's coming. So yay, you know, I just hope they use him again. And Wanda killing the Illuminati, is it Illuminati or Illuminati? I'm not the biggest Marvel fan, so it's a bit rough. But that was pretty sick. And it's kind of nice to see that Marvel was, see what I mean? Like, this is why I like the movie. It tested boundaries, but we don't see this a lot in other Marvel movies. So it was really, really nice. And it just showed me that, like, they need to give as much freedom to their directors and some of their creative people to give it a chance, you know? So that's what I want to see more of. So that was probably a 8 out of 10 for me personally. More realistically, a 6 or 7. I thought Hawkeye was like a 7. In terms of entertainment, that's about what it got to. It didn't wow me, but I genuinely enjoyed watching it for the most part. Then I watched Moon Knight. I personally like that more than Hawkeye, but I loved The Mummy as a kid, like the movie The Mummy with Brendan Fraser, and I got a lot of vibes from that just because it's ancient Egypt and stuff. So like I was really into it personally. I also thought Oscar Isaac's, I think that's his, I think it's Oscar Isaac, isn't it? I'm pretty sure. See, like it's been a while since. Yeah, it's Oscar Isaac. I don't know why I thought there was another name there. Like that, like Isaac was his middle name. But his performance in this killed it. I think he was the best part of it. The switching back and forth, like I think he just pulled it perfectly. Like I really felt for his character. I think we got to really see a really good like character arc for a main character within the first season, and addressing kind of like many of the troubled parts of his past was really well done. I was left the show wanting more. I had questions about the world than just rather like, all right, what are they going to do next for him? And like I was like, okay, how does this work? How does this work? And I feel like that's really important when you're doing a first season of a show, is that you have a completed arc and you leave the audience wanting more from the world than just like, okay, I wonder what he's going to do next. Like, just like, what's the next thing that he's going to do? Is he going to stop this bad guy with this? No, it's like, oh man, I wonder how this affects this aspect of the world. I wonder, like, who are these other gods? And, you know, like, how do they play into it? Do they have any role? Like I want to know more. Like, I didn't know much about Moon Knight, but now I'm interested in Moon Knight, and that killed it. So I think I would give it an 8 out of 10 because I thought like it left a really good taste in my mouth, and I thought Oscar Isaac's performance was fantastic. I thought the action was pretty fun and cool. I thought the jokes, even though we've been talking a lot about how Marvel has too many jokes, they were funny. So like to actually genuinely make me laugh, that was really good. So I'll give it points for that. So that gets an 8 out of 10 for me. Of course, it did feel like other Marvel stuff where they were trying really hard to make jokes when it started getting serious at times. So that's why it doesn't really get any higher than that. And I'm even giving it the benefit of the doubt, really. So like this is kind of showing for me personally, I am very generous with my ratings of shows, but like the points I don't give it 8s, 9s, 10s, 7s are like the major aspects I don't like. It's gonna at least be a 5 for me if like I enjoyed some of it and I went away going meh, you know. It has to genuinely annoy me to get below that, or like I am bored. So that doesn't mean I like think these are the best things ever. There's just things I really like about it that I think they should get props for. So that's why like I'm giving these like 7s and 8s and stuff. So if you're disagreeing with me because you deserve it lower than that, we might be agreeing. It's just my rating's different. Okay, so after Moon Knight, like I said, I really enjoyed it. I really like I like the debate in it too. The difference between like, do you judge people before they commit a crime, or do you judge them after they've committed it and give them a chance not to commit it at all? Like, I thought that was a very good moral dilemma, you know. Excuse me, I just ate lunch, doing all sorts of things. But like, I don't know, I really like the setup they gave for the question, because it got me invested in like, wow, who's actually like, is this guy got a point? Like, I didn't feel for him as a villain, but like it made me think like, does he have a point? I came to the conclusion, no, of course. Like the show does a good job at like really teasing that idea and wanting you to believe like, no, that's not right. Then like they really make you want to think about that, but like you still don't in the end, and he's still a villain based on his methods and stuff like that. So I thought it did that pretty decent. Not the best, but pretty decent. And I think the final show I watched Eternals. Honestly, I'd give it a 6. Mostly because like I felt like they just rushed so much. They rushed so much. I liked the characters. I liked Kingo. I liked I I liked him pretty much. Everyone else I was like, meh. Oh no, wait. I thought God, I can't remember his name. It's been a while since I've seen it, but he basically was taking care of is it Anne Hathaway? Anne Hathaway, like he was taking care of Athena in the time, which honestly she felt like she just was there for a couple scenes and then like they just gave her a paycheck just to be a name in the credit and to do 2 or 3 scenes. Like I don't understand like what her character arc was. Really, was it overcoming her like savage nature, even though like it is because she was remembering stuff and she was on the defensive. So was she really just being I don't know, like that part kind of confused me. So like since I was confused and I felt like it didn't really mean anything, it didn't really hit well for me, and I personally didn't like it because like I was confused and I felt like it just didn't land what they were trying to say. I felt like a couple of the deaths were pretty important. Icarus's death was very symbolic. I liked it. The guy who protected Athena, his death hit because I liked him. He was pretty cool. Salman Hayek, I wish we got more time with her. I really do. I thought she did a pretty good job playing like the motherly, like leader figure, the matriarch of the Eternals. She just pulled off that like role really good. Like, but she's a great actor, and I thought she did that role great. I wish her death wasn't off screen at the beginning. Like this movie jumped around a bunch, and it really felt like they were trying to be like, oh, piece it together yourself, when it's just kind of obvious, really. And there didn't really feel like a big bad until like the right end. Like, see, this movie was setting up the Celestials, and it didn't really reveal the Celestials until the very end. And I felt like that's what kind of made it feel bad, because the whole time it's like you're trying to get me to like these characters, and you're kind of half-assing some of them. Because you're not giving them aggregate screen time because they have to do a reunion. Like, I kind of wish that we got time to learn who they were in a whole movie, and then in a second movie they were separated and had a reunion. Like that, it would have hit better. Kingo's awesome. He's funny. He's fantastic. I thought the kid was kind of annoying. Like, I forget their name, but they're not like a kid. They're like thousands of years old. But like they kind of felt like acting like a child. But I mean, like that's kind of, I liked her storyline, like I liked like what they were doing with that, because it was a very interesting concept. It's like, why am I stuck as a kid forever? Like, I can't have a lot of things as many other people around me would have, because I'm going to be a kid forever. Like, I can't be adult. I can't understand what it's like to grow old. I can't understand what it's like to be loved in like an adult way. Like, 'cause she's technically the maturity of a 1,000-year-old, but everyone sees her as a child. So it's like, how am I supposed to find love when people who are like at the same level as me, is like age wise in sense, can't look at me that way because I'm a child? Because she's literally not a child, but she's like in the child form. So it's like, yeah, like that kind of sucks. Like, that's an interesting dilemma that she's stuck in, So it's just like, it's like, it was interesting, but I felt like it kind of fell flat. The guy, I wish we explored more about the guy who was like, well, we should help prevent humans from going to war. I wish we spent more time throughout the ages seeing them in history. Like, I almost felt like this should be like a show where like we get like maybe a couple episodes are in one time era, and then maybe like the second half of the season is another time era, or like each season of the show's in a different time era where they fight like a different one of the like I forget what they're called, the bad guys. I already forget the name of them, and we don't get much explanation on them except at the very end, like, oh, they were created and then I created you to stop them. So it's just like, well, I kind of saw this coming. Like, so it gets a 6 out of 10 because there were a couple things I liked, and like I was entertained. The action was pretty good, but I just felt like it fell flat, So it could have been done a lot better, and it just was set up the movie. So that's how I feel about Eternals. It's probably my least favorite out of all of them. Really. What else? And then finally, Miss Marvel. Um, Probably it's a 6 out of 10 for me too. Only because I felt like it wasn't made for me. You know how you watch a movie and you're just like, I'm bored because like this isn't my type of movie. Like I'm really into history and action and comedy. Am I really gonna watch a soap opera romance? No, I'm not. Um, I have been a boy forever. I'm into a lot of things that are stereotypically seen as things that boys like. Miss Marvel felt like a teenage girl coming of age movie that personally for me, I'm not many things she is. For one, I am not a girl. I am not a teenager now. I'm in my 20s. Um I'm not living in New Jersey. I've never lived in like a big urban city, and I've never like had a lot of the same struggles she had with her family either. And I'm not Muslim. So it's like I'm watching this and I'm like, okay, like I don't really relate to a lot of things that she has in her life, but like that doesn't necessarily make it bad to me. To me, I'm just looking at this like, yeah, I'm bored because like I don't care about any of this, but at the same time I'm like, I'm not like I like that. I just have none of these aspects of my life, so like maybe that's why I'm bored because like I just don't relate to any of this. So like I watched it and I'm like, okay, if I was at the very least a teenage girl, I might like this. If like I was a teenager who was Muslim and finally get to see a lot of the aspects of like my life, my culture, of my family in something, I'd probably like this. So I'm watching this, I'm like, okay, this is probably not made for me. So like I'm somewhat entertained at times. Some of the jokes are pretty good. Some of the jokes are cringy outside of it not relating to me. So like I was like, okay, like I'm entertained at parts, but honestly, I'm a little bit bored because like I just kind of don't relate to a lot of things. And all the stuff that's supposed to relate to me, like the action and all that, felt like kind of average. Like it wasn't that exciting. Like there was that scene where she's fighting the red dagger guy, and they're just making some of the cringiest jokes, dude. Like I just could not enjoy it. So I just was like, all right, like this is kind of in the first place. So for me, so the fact that I don't relate to and all that, it gets a 6 for me. But I will say this though. If you are any of the things that I said that I wasn't, and I feel like I didn't relate to, then I'd probably recommend the show to you. You might like it a lot more than me because it's kind of made for you in mind, I think. Like I said earlier, the visual effects are good, regardless if you relate to the show characters or not, or the story at all. They're good. So if you're going to see because you want to see some cool visual effects, if you like Mitchell's versus the Machines, you'll like Miss Marvel for that too. It does a lot of that at the beginning and kind of wavers off at the end, but it's really cool at the beginning. They do it well. And I do like how they like. I think Miss Marvel shows that all the shows and movies they're doing now, they're trying to set up a lot of things for the future phases. They really are. And I think that's why a lot of people don't like it. I think we'll come to enjoy like what they did and their purposes as time goes on. So I say if you're really not liking Marvel right now, just give it some time, give it a chance, let them set up some things. I know that isn't as good as beginning of phase 1 where they were all good movies and they still did set up. But like I think like this will probably be the weakest phase we've seen out of Marvel. But it will come at the like, yeah, it was weak and boring, but at least it set up these things that were good later. That doesn't mean it's like going to be like top tier, one of the best later in life, but I think it will be like, okay, we're glad we at least had it did this and did that. So my least favorite recent Marvel movie would probably be Eternals. My most favorite would probably be Moon Knight. And like movie and show, that is. And overall, I think Marvel's kind of losing track of the quality aspect of a lot of things story-wise and all that. And I know I'm trying to keep these podcast episodes under an hour to an hour and a half, so like I can't go as much detail as I want. And if I had a guest on, I would let it go as long as we talked, But, like your boy's on a tight schedule, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, so that's kind of what I summed it up as for Marvel. Now let me get to the boys. I want to end today's episode of talking about The Boys, and more importantly, why I think The Boys outshines everything Marvel has been doing and every show I've ever watched in the past couple of years. And here's why. And I've already kind of touched on this a bit. One, the Marvels has great, realistic, choreographed action. I feel like the fighting is just on par. It is gritty. It feels real. Even though these people are superhumans, the choreography is so on point. The fight between Butcher, Homelander, and Soldier Boy in season 3 at the broken down mansion is just real. It's just an awesome fight sequence, and I love to rewatch that on YouTube every once in a while just to see kind of like it's just so action packed, and the talk and smack, the build up before the fight, because you just want to see Butcher fight Homelander with superpowers, and the build up for it's just really, really good. So the fighting's great, the action's fantastic. The comedy of it all, between Butcher just being an asshole, Homelander being an asshole and being unintentionally fun. Like everybody, there's so much unintentional comedy and intentional comedy here where both work, and that just makes it fantastic. Where the unintentional comedy things can still be taken seriously, but you can still laugh at them later. The amount of meme material from the show alone should tell you how unnecessarily funny this is without being like it being overbearing or too much. So that's the comedy in this feels real, and it comes from a good fan base. While Marvel, they just ham-fist jokes in there to kind of check that box. Like, okay, we need a couple jokes for the kids. Now, The Boys isn't exactly made for kids, right? So there's that to think about. But if there's a lot of things that people are laughing at that, even though it's not meant for that, but that's good comedy, man. I don't know. I'm not a professional in comedy or anything, and I guess we should be fair. The Boys is not meant for a kid audience. Marvel is trying to appeal to everybody. But there's so many ways that you can appeal to everybody without being really generic. I mean, look at Scooby-Doo 1. That was meant to be rated R, and they made it PG-13. It is one of the most adultly themed kid movies I have ever watched in my life. It has so many adult themes that can go over the kids' heads and still entertain the parents. So why can't Marvel do that? Well, it's different people in charge, but still, the point I'm making is that it's just, you don't have to be generic and boring to just check a box off to be successful. You can actually still give a crap about your audience and give a crap about the stuff you make and not be generic about it. That's how you're shutting people off, and they're going to shows like The Boys because The Boys actually cares about what they're making and stuff like that. So the comedy's fantastic. If you want a little bit of laugh and not to feel like it's forced, The Boys has got that on point. The story pacing. The story pacing's fantastic. Every episode feels important to the overall story to some degree. And I don't just mean only one important thing happens in it that basically they address in the next episode. And then the episode after that, they have a new thing they have to address that gets started and then addressed in the next episode. The show constantly feels like it is constantly okay, because this happened. And so because this happened, we have to do this. And because we have to do this, we have to do that. It's a great flow. If you ever watch South Park's writers talk about how to make a good story, I genuinely felt like this is how The Boys felt. They really took the time to have the flow and pace of the story feel important. And if something randomly happened, the thing that randomly happened still came out of a result of something else. And it's very few times where it's because The Boys comic was actually written, from my understanding, it wasn't as good of a story, but it was a lot of shock factor, and you still get that in the show. But it's almost these writers took that shock factor of the show and included a genuinely good paced story in it, and it makes it 5 times more enjoyable. So that's why I think the show works so well. It takes the one thing that's good out of the original IP, actually adds everything in that fills the rest of the gaps, and then you get this grade A god tier material from this show. Seriously. And season 3 is the best example of that. I can just give it a chef's kiss. It's just so good. The pacing, fantastic. 9 out of 10 on that. And I think probably one of the most important reasons why the show is so good is the character development. I can rarely think of a single character that isn't a like super side character that doesn't have like good character motivations, an arc of some kind, and if they don't have an arc, they are meant there to supplement other people's arcs, and that's like the point of them. Like Ashley doesn't really have an arc, but her whole point of her character and any changes in her behavior are based totally around other characters to showcase with them and what's important with them. Like no side character takes the spotlight unjustifiably, and if a side character takes shows changes, it is based around people that like actually are important to the story and kind of help supplement an aspect. Like Ashley's a great character to like see kind of like the behavior of Homelander throughout some of the show. Butcher, another great example. He like I just every single character feels realistic, relatable. Nobody's perfect in the show, and that's probably one of the biggest aspects that makes it so successful, is that everybody to some degree has something like a problem, and it makes every single one of them relatable. And one of the few characters I feel like barely has a problem with them, and is to kind of help teeter to the scale. Like you have the best of the best and then the worst of the worst, but there's still a little bit of like, there's still a little bit of bad in the good and a little bit of good in the bad, but that doesn't necessarily make them good, like good or bad. Like I think Starlight is honestly the best like good character in the show. Like anytime she is speaking, I genuinely like want to listen because I know she has the best intentions. Like when it comes to like sorry guys, I'm snapping my fingers, issues of morality, I genuinely care what she has to say because she has been consistent with being the morally just one throughout the entire show and backing it up. And when the times where she's wrong is more within like how to do something and all that. And that's consistent too. Like the things that like characters are right on and characters are wrong on and how characters behave are all consistent. Every single one of these characters are consistent, and if they have arcs, the arcs are consistent with what their motivations are, and that is so important when making good characters. The only characters I feel like don't get that are the ones that we don't get a lot of time with. And even like characters like Soldier Boy, where he still gets an arc, but like I want more because I feel like there's more to gain from it. Like we need more time with him to see the full arc. We saw an arc that satisfies me, but all that like oh man, it's getting hot in here. I still don't have AC in this apartment. Sorry to go off topic a bit, but we need to fix the AC in here. It's one of the few things that needs to get fixed as we moved in, but they told us that. But yeah, like Butcher gets a great character arc, and there's still more to see from him. Huey gets a fantastic character arc that's supplemented to Starlight's character arc with standing up to people too. Like they complement each other, and it matters. And logic, like I hardly felt like there's any moment where things were illogical, and if they were illogical, they eventually were kind of solved within the same season. None of this like, oh, you need to like read in between the lines to get like a reason this happened. It's like, no, something happens in the show where it justifies it. Then if you want to read in between the lines, it can help support the things that we already see. It's one thing I cannot stand about some series nowadays. I shouldn't have to invest time to supplement your lazy writing at all. And you don't get that with The Boys. The Boys actually gives you a satisfying outcome with just about every episode, every season, every single one. It's honestly amazing how well they do all this. God, there's so much to talk about, and I have so little time to talk about it. But basically, my general consensus about all those things is like they're all good for those kind of reasons. Now, before I end this, I'll talk about some moments that are specifically memorable to me. I'm trying to think from season 1 up. Oh yeah, I personally really like Huey because like I do a lot of stuff with like AV for my job. And he's an AV salesman. So I'm like, wow, is this character written for me? Going back to like, this character's written for me. Well, Miss Marvel's written for like other people. So like, hey, that might be a reason why I like The Boys so much. Might be something to think about. But like, no, I personally really like Huey a lot because like he has a lot of realistic like aspects that maybe I overcame in the past or I know in personal people. Butcher puts off that like big brother vibe, you know, and I know if you've seen the show, then that adds a whole other meaning to it too. But like he just like every time he's around, you're like you want to see what he has to say. Like what's he gonna tell Huey? How what does he do? How does it affect everybody else? Mother's Milk is just constantly like and honestly, I don't know. I've never experienced what actual OCD is. You know, I don't think I have it. I don't think like I've ever fully seen it. But I think the show does justice to showing like what chronic OCD looks like and kind of the hardships of it. And it makes you really feel for Mother's Milk who suffers from it. And it's kind of nice to see like when maybe illnesses are exaggerated at times. And this one might be exaggerated, but like it comes from a place of like almost trying to be like, hey, people suffer from stuff like this. And this is kind of how like people end up suffering and how it deeply affects their life. And you get to really see that in a lot of the characters with post-traumatic stress disorder, OCD, trauma, guilt, like survivor's guilt, like all this stuff. So it makes you really feel for these people who are truly suffering. And Mother's Milk is a great example of that. So like it's just nice to see that like it feels genuine and they're not just trying to like check a box like, okay, we got the mental illness thing done. It's like, no, like they wrote a genuine story and they showed and it felt real, and they were trying not to make a point about it, but necessarily maybe the point they're making was, yeah, life sucks for them. This is what it's somewhat like, and this is how it affects them, you know? So it felt real and genuine. The Boys has a lot of like subliminal messages morally, psychologically about a lot of things that like you could rewatch the show and get a new take from it, I think. And that's why I'm kind of excited to rewatch it, because I want to see if I think the same things again. Maybe I see something new in it, you know, like I want to check it out again to see if I get a new perspective. And maybe I'll talk about it in another episode in the future, like if I'm reviewing season 4 or something of The Boys, which they're getting, hell yes. Another cool moment, another memorable moment I'm trying to think of. I'm a little bit laughing because I want to compare it to Marvel again. The scene where the girls step up and they have like a badass moment. That's how you genuinely don't force diversity and stuff. Cause like there's that, they really make a good comparison when they do like the girls get it done, you know, and they're making fun of how like when they're shooting the fake movie of it and it's just like full screen shooting that. But then it gets to the scene where like they're beating up Stormfront and all the girls are just whipping her ass, you know, they're just kicking the shit out of her. And they're just doing it. And all the other people are not there. And then after they do that, they do make a slight joke. They're like, wow, girls really do get it done. And it's like, yeah, they still put that comment there, but they do it after the fact where it's like at that point, you're like, oh shit, I didn't even realize that like all these strong, powerful women are being that. And I didn't even like feel it was forced. So the show has a lot of good, genuine like representation without feeling it's trying to shove it down your throat, you know? Because you know that's gonna shut off all these I hate my politics in my shows people, because they're able to show a lot of these messages and a lot of these like they put in a lot of diversity. They do a lot of parodies of political people, and it honestly feels like you know they're doing that, but you never feel like they're trying to ham fist a lecture to you. But you still can walk away, look, there are many things that they're making fun of that I genuinely agree with. And I looked at that going like, okay, I see the point they're making. And I still walked away from the show being like, and I was still entertained. I saw the point they're making, and you know, maybe they do have a point. And then sometimes I'd be like, I don't really still agree with it. And I'd still walk away. You know how good a show is that you can be a parody and someone who you're kind of making fun of or criticizing their opinion of can still enjoy the show? How often is that? Like, seriously, how often is that? And anytime they had like the huge, like the far right and the far left, like rallies, like arguing at each other, it just made me laugh. And it made me sit there go, it does seem like they kind of look like that. Like why is that? And like, it makes you really wonder, like I never felt like they were trying to like force like, oh, like all these people on this side are stupid, because then you get one scene with the really like stereotypical conservative Republican who's like they're gonna take my guns and all that, which is absolutely ridiculous, but like based on a little bit of reality. And it's like, okay, like I don't feel like that's entirely accurate, but maybe they got a point. Like maybe people need to chill out about the gun thing. And then they'll cut to a scene where they talk to Ashley, where she's like, they're meeting with the marketing team, and they don't care about how Maeve is actually like bisexual. They're just trying to show her as lesbian. She goes, I'm bisexual. And they're like, oh, well, lesbian sells with crowds. Like it's showing how like many people like on that side of politics, like they don't care that like you're part of this group or what you actually are. They just care about selling to their audience. So it felt like they pulled no punches for nobody, and they were just like, look, this is wrong, and these are exaggerations of what is wrong with that. And it makes you really wonder, like, yeah, they got a point about that, or yeah, I agree with that. Like, you can watch it and be like, I disagree with this, I agree with this, I think they have a point about this, and maybe they have a point about this, and I'll change my mind. Like, I walked away from the show actually thinking about how I thought about things, and actually like understanding the point they were making, even if I still disagreed with them on it. And for the show to do that is very important, especially in this time age where, parody is just seen as, oh, you hate my opinion, like they don't actually like, they take things too seriously. Like the show takes it seriously in a non-serious way that helps it kind of break down some walls. So if you like political parody, whether you're right or left, I think you'll still like the show. And I've seen people get upset at people who are actually conservative. Like I've seen people get upset at conservative people when they're like, how can you like the show? It's making fun of you. And they're like, yeah, I see how it's making fun of me, but it's also making fun of you too, to some degree. And it makes people like, oh, it is? Like, it's like, and I've seen the vice versa of that too. It's like, how can you like the show? It's making fun of you. It's like, well, dude, it's making fun of you too. Like, yeah, it's making fun of like, the identity politics and stuff, but it's fully making fun of the far right as well, So if you don't care about politics at all and you like to laugh at everybody, this is the show for you, I got a sure kick out of it, that's for sure. I'm trying to think. Okay. Oh, I'm getting close to time, so I'll kind of end it on this. Deaths that I felt like really hit close to home for me, and I didn't want to see happen, and is a little bit of the problem if they were just trying to shock us, was Black Noir. I did not want to see Black Noir die yet. We got this whole like backstory, and I was like, now I'm motivated for Black Noir. I wanted to take on Soldier Boy, and then he gets taken away. It hurts so much, man, and I hope he somehow survives, but I doubt it, man. I doubt it. It's so sad. I miss him already. I want to see him come back, man. I really hope he actually isn't dead, and this was just like they just were trying to do a little bit of shock and then doing a switcheroo like that. But then that would make the entire death scene pointless in the end, so I don't know. So like it makes you really feel characters, because I did not want to see him die. And there's so many people you're like, you're on the bad side here, but why do I like you? It's so frustrating. Like Homelander, I feel for him. I feel sorry for him, but I still want to see him lose. Butcher, I want him to win, but I think he's a dick. Like, it's just Huey. I want him to feel like confident and powerful because he feels weak, but I don't want him to lose sight of what really matters. Starlight, I agree with her, and Huey is being insecure, but I wish she was more understanding. Like, it's just, everybody has something. Like, I cannot talk good enough about how good the characters are. And the end of today's episode, before I give my final review, my favorite character by far was Soldier Boy. It's the main reason I decided to watch the show. I saw the clips of Jensen Ackles and doing all the Soldier Boy stuff, and I was like, okay, I gotta give the show a chance. I never watched Supernatural, but now I might, which I know might make me a fake fan, but like I always thought Supernatural wasn't really made for me. But I might give it a shot now because I think Jensen Ackles killed his Soldier Boy. I think he played the whole like man in the wrong time period so well. And we never really know if like he is as bad as like people say he is, and you get little snippets. Like I I think we'll see him again another season and we'll get to really see how bad he is. I think they wanted to do it lighthearted because they still wanted it to be a mystery since he was sort of on the good guy side, but he's not really, you know? And his acting's so on point because you got to see so much emotion while him directly telling you. And I think the moment you see this most is when he finds out Homelander's his technical son, and we just had a scene where he's talking about how he's like, oh man, I always wanted a son. And he's like, well, Homelander's not your actual son. And he goes, like he doesn't really say anything. So you're like, what's he gonna do? It leaves you in suspense, you know? And then when he finally says, he's like, I'm gonna kill you anyway, you know? I'm gonna kill you anyway. And he's like, but I'm your son. Like I'm literally you. And he goes, I wish I could have raised you instead. And he goes, but I'm literally you. And he's like, yeah, well, I know. And you're a fucking disappointment. There's so many layers to that line, especially how he delivered how he's shivering, because he just talks about how his father called him a disappointment, and now he's calling him a disappointment because all he sees is literally an exact version of himself who he knows his dad would see him as a disappointment. So he's basically saying, he's like, I would not want to raise my son to be like me. I'd raise him to be better than me if I could. And all he sees is himself. So by calling him a disappointment, he's agreeing with his dad, and his dad is the whole reason he wants to raise someone not like him, even though it's like you would think he would love himself and saying, well, my dad's wrong about me. I'm a good person. I'm going to raise my son to be good like me, and I'm going to do better than him. No, he hates himself so much where he hates seeing himself in Homelander, which is what his father, so he's literally become his father. There's so many layers of like how much like Soldier Boy came out and felt like a very realistic person without directly saying all I just told you, just in that 1 to 2 sentence dialogue, man. Like that's how good this show is. Like you feel so much for the characters just for so little. I cannot speak so much about the show. If you like Supernatural and Jensen Ackles itself, watch the show. He's not Dean from the show, from my understanding. He is a completely different other person. He is funny unintentionally, just like Homelander. And there's so many small things that are just enjoyable to this. The characters are great. The pacing is great. The comedy is great. The action is great. The set design is great. The cinematography is great. The special effects are great. Everything is great. Aside from a few like story choices here and there, and maybe a joke here or two, or some character actions here or there are illogical, which I don't even want to get into that because the show's so good where I don't even fucking care about that shit. Like that shit's only there for the most part. Like there's a couple moments where I'm like, okay, that was kind of dumb, but like then you get the next scene and you kind of forget about that. That brings it down just that sliver of a point, because I feel like you have to be literally the best thing on the planet to get a 10. And maybe one day I'll change my mind and actually give this a 10. But see, like overall show wise, right now, it is a 9 out of 10. Season 1 by itself is, you know what? Each season is a 9 out of 10. And if there's any season that gets a little bit higher, season 3 is a 9.5 out of 10. So probably on average, it's probably like more like a 9.11, something like that. But yeah. The show for me is a 9 out of 10. I highly recommend watching it. And I know today's was a long episode of In Theaters with Seth podcast and a bit like all over the place because I didn't want to just give this episode just to talk about the boys. I wanted to talk about all the different shows I've been watching in general. And I guess you can kind of see like why I like the show so much when you've seen how I like feel about some of the other ones too. But that's my thoughts on Marvel movies and shows, and more importantly, my thoughts on the boys and how I feel about the show. And in general, I'm very excited for the future. Just to kind of end this off today, I am still putting things together in my apartment. I still got some things to figure out, but I thought I should at least post something. So here this is. Expect some more in the future. I'm trying to get in the groove again. I got a couple busy things coming up in the next couple of weeks, so we'll see how that goes for me. But thank you for watching, guys. I hope to see you guys next time for the next episode of In Theaters with AlrightSprite, and hopefully I get some ball rolling to some other content. So be sure to check that out as well. If you agree with anything I said, if you liked anything I said, be sure to hit the like button down below and comment what you agree with. Maybe you disagree with me on something. Tell me what you think. Maybe you noticed something I didn't. Maybe you made a point that I didn't as well, and maybe you just want to tell me how much of an idiot I am. Whatever it is, go ahead and comment below that, and hopefully you guys come back for the next video. So see you around, guys, and have all great days. I don't know how to end podcasts, so I'm just going to end it there. All right. Well, bye, everyone, and I hope to see you guys again in the future.